Not convinced it ain't no acting or accident what the track emits. You strapped with gas that you ain't even practiced with. The fact is.
Welcome to 3 Count Commentaries. Let us discuss WWE Day 1 from January the 1st, 2021. It was a roller coaster of a show. I think overall it was very solid. I don't think there was nothing in it that really made me cringe. Just as, certain stuff I didn't like, things here and there, but nothing that really kind of made me, just break down and say, this is why I hate WWE, So we got to start the show. There's no reason to bury the lead on this channel. We kind of get right to it. Roman Reigns has COVID, or as Pat McAfee put it, the big homie Omi. He's such an ignorant dude. He's ignorant as hell. He insists on saying SmackDown, and he insists on saying that. Anyway, Roman Reigns has COVID, and as somebody who is immunocompromised, it could be a little bit scary. But he's in very good health, and he's a pretty young guy. I don't think he's even 40 yet. He's probably 36, 37 maybe. He should be mostly all right. I know they're going to keep an eye on him and everything. More than likely he's vaccinated and all that kind of stuff too. So I'm not too concerned about Roman Reigns' health until I hear a reason to be concerned. So Roman was out. This means that we had Brock Lesnar. We flew him in. What are we going to do with him? I mean, you could have had Brock in a special exhibition match or something. But they decided to do Brock Lesnar versus Bobby Lashley versus Big E versus Seth Rollins versus Kevin Owens in one gigantic match, because Brock is a free agent. Brock is a free agent. It means they can move him to Raw if they want to, and they wanted to. So they moved Brock to Raw for the night, and he won the WWE Championship. For starters, this match, good. All right. I am notoriously rough on these kinds of fatal 4-ways, triple threats, or whatever. But when this thing started out with a bang and Brock was just throwing guys back and forth, I was just kind of like, this match is not going to be long. It ain't going to be long at all. Especially from the tempo. Even these guys can't work at that speed. A lot of these are big dudes. Well, 3 out of 5 were really big dudes. Well, 4 out of 5 is big dudes. I don't think Seth probably could have kept that tempo up, a couple of more minutes. Those other guys would have been sucking wind if they had to go a little, even a couple of minutes longer than that they went. So I pretty much knew it was going to be, smooth sailing when we started seeing all the German suplexes, and he's just throwing guys around, boom, 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 boom. I was like, oh, Brock is getting it in. He's just tearing dudes up, and I'm all about that. I really liked when Big E clotheslined him over the top rope. For some reason, to me, that just felt like that's the Big E we need to see all the time. When he really laid that clothesline in and it made noise and Brock flew over the top rope for him, that was excellent stuff. That's really what we should be getting from Big E all the time. But we'll talk about this in a second because a lot of people are upset because Big E lost. We'll be discussing that momentarily. Lashley spears Brock through the barricade, and that's when I realized Brock was going to win. When it becomes take Brock out and then lay him somewhere, and then everybody jump Brock, all right, Brock's going to win. All right, so this is almost the exact same structure as the triple threat match that's with Seth Rollins and John Cena that they had. Remember when they put Brock through a table and they kept jumping him and doing stuff like that? And that match also had a pretty swift tempo to it. So once Brock was down, it became keep Brock out of the match. So Seth Rollins and Kevin Owens, they went out there. Seth Rollins tope suicida through the ropes. Then Kevin Owens did a frog splash on him. I like that. That was pretty dope. They was working together. I like that too. Later in the match, Brock just starts F5ing guys. F5 Seth Rollins, F5 Kevin Owens, F5 Big E. He gets speared by Lashley. 1, 2. Brock kicks out, of course. Lashley actually got the hurt lock on Brock, so he got both of his finishes on Brock and couldn't beat him either time. Big E ended up saving Brock from the hurt lock. At the end, of course, it was an F5 to Big E and a pinfall. And I was like, ooh, wee, baby. Both members of the New Day who became world champion both lost to Brock. Big E, the actual champion, got pinned. Interesting stuff. So there's so much to discuss here. There's a lot to discuss. It begs the question, of course, what was the finish for Roman and Brock? Because that match was the match that was the draw for so many people. What was the intended finish for that match? We will never know now, because it seems like they're going in a completely different direction. The only option they really had was to put Brock in this match and lose. And then Brock would have had to go home for as long as Roman is gone. And then he could have just started it up all over again for Royal Rumble. But what it seems like they decided to do is to take Brock in a different direction. And then somehow he's going to meet Roman again. Maybe probably at Mania. Okay. So they basically took Brock off the SmackDown path, put him on the Raw path. He's going to wrestle the Raw guys as long as Roman's going to be gone. And then they're going to meet again at WrestleMania, which means that whoever Roman was going to wrestle at WrestleMania, he's probably going to wrestle them at the Royal Rumble. So it'd probably be Drew McIntyre. Now, that's the only way it makes sense to me. That's the only thing that makes sense to me. And yes, I am buying in onto the title for title thing. I'm buying in on that. So what we have in this situation, what we have with Brock, is that now Brock is the champion of Raw. I saw somebody say that, Brock being put in this match last minute and he wins. Doesn't that bury the Raw main event scene? And I would have to say, if you're a professional athlete and you prepared, you've been training for weeks, for this particular kind of match, you've been training for this guy and this guy and this guy and this guy, and then all of a sudden somebody you had no idea, appears, and it's not some rinky-dink, replacement. This is Brock effing Lesnar. This is Brock, and they threw him into this match last minute. They threw a shark into y'all kiddie pool, and now you have to find a way to deal with that. And not everybody's going to be prepared for it. I don't think they did a good job of having the guys express that. And, the heels could have done it. The heels could have whined. And I think Kevin Owens did a little bit. Seth Rollins didn't do enough of it. Where the heels should have said what the babyfaces can't say. The babyfaces have to, Big E, because he's the real babyface here, he has to be, I'm up for all challenges. I'm not scared of nothing. Yada, yada, yada. He has to be that. But everybody else can whine. Like, look, we prepared for 3 guys. Now we have to wrestle 4. And that 4th guy is Brock effing Lesnar? Like, come on. You cut me some slack here. And that's the kind of thing that we really should be. They should have been beating that drum all night. Like, these guys are not prepared for Brock. They're throwing Brock in here and nobody sees it coming. They're not ready. That way, when Brock wins, you can say, well, damn, they've been saying it all night that these guys were not prepared for Brock Lesnar to appear. It makes sense that Brock wins. Brock wasn't prepared to be in a fatal 4-way either, a fatal 5-way. But at the same time, he is Brock Lesnar, so he'll be okay. At the most, he just has to worry about other people getting pinned. So I don't say that it buries the Raw main event scene. I think, if anything, he is there now to add a little bit of legitimacy to it and some stability to it and give it to a foundation, which has been the problem with Raw all of last year. They kept switching the title, trying to find somebody with some legitimacy that can hold the belt, but they kept fucking it up. And it's because those guys, this is where we get with Big E, those guys were not protected. I did see somebody say that Big E had a flat title run and that he wasn't booked well as champion. And I agree with all of that. And I will say the same thing about Bobby. They didn't really book Lashley as strong as they could either. He was losing matches to New Day, and that was the problem. It's hard to get people to buy in when the champion is wrestling every week. He's struggling to beat, job guys. And he ends up this is the second pinfall loss for Big E in less than a month. He got pinned 2 weeks ago. The idea is these guys were not protected. They're not gonna beat Brock on Raw. So now he's gonna be able to get some momentum. And if the champion gets momentum, then the challengers now have a mountain to overcome. They have a mountain to climb. This is a good thing. This is a really good thing. That's what the champion is supposed to be. The champion is supposed to be a mountain that the challenger is trying to climb. If you can beat him in a tag team match, if you can beat him one-on-one, or your best friend can pin him, even with a small package and a distraction roll-up or whatever, then yeah, it doesn't look very good. And that's WWE's fault for the way that they booked Lashley and Big E as champion. It was a problem the way that Big E won the title. He won the title off of Money in the Bank. And because Lashley was hurt. So from the very beginning, it was off kilter, and just about everybody saw that, and everybody knew it. He lost the title like he won it. He won on a surprise, he lost it on a surprise. It is what it is. I take that as karma. It's like you attacked Lashley while he was hurt. He didn't expect you to come out there, even if you kind of gave him a couple of hours notice. Brock gave you a couple of hours notice. So that's a nice little poetic story we can tell right there. It was like Big E can't complain. He had a couple of hours notice to mentally correct himself to wrestle Brock Lesnar, and he failed to do so. When he gave Lashley a couple of hours notice, and when Lashley complained, he was like, I told you before the show even started, I told you I was cashing in my Money in the Bank. So now it's kind of karma for Big E, and I would like for them to address that, even though I doubt they will. I would like for them to address that and talk about that Big E can't complain, that it's all these last minute changes. It was a last minute change. So no, I don't think it buries the Raw scene. I think it really just exposes that WWE has poorly booked the last 3 WWE champions, Drew McIntyre included, Bobby Lashley and Big E. All of them were just poorly put together, poorly booked. Lashley, they would not give the ball to these guys. They got the belt, but they didn't get the booking, which is the important part. You can book somebody to be the champion, but they need to be protected. They need to be elevated. They need to feel like the top guy on the brand. Most of these guys did not feel that way. Big E felt like a guy with the belt. Lashley, he was sometimes felt like he was the champion. Other times he felt like he was just a guy with the belt. You have to make sure that you are servicing the champion in the right ways. And they were not doing so when it came to Big E and when it came to Bobby Lashley. It was just a mistake. And now they're saying, okay, we got Brock. We can't fuck this up because he's not going to be around all the time. So all of the guys who lost in this match still are going to be on Raw. You're going to have to find some way of meeting out who is going to get the next shot and who's going to be doing what after this. So this leads us to what's happening at Rumble, what's happening at Mania. I am going to subscribe to the idea that was pitched by some guy online that is probably going to be Brock Roman title for title at WrestleMania. I am willing to subscribe to that idea. I don't want that, but I'm willing to subscribe to that idea. I think that whatever happens anyway probably won't last for much longer. When it comes to unified champion or whatever, I don't think it'll last very long. But for a short time, at least until the Money in the Bank or something like that, yeah, I can see it. But Big E. So what do we do with Big E now that he's been beaten? I think we have an opportunity here. You hit the reset button with Big E. He climbed the mountain. He's gotten there. They have not, or at least hopefully they will not turn back on him going back to being a tag team guy or him going back to be a mid-card guy. Hopefully he's up in this echelon to stay, at least for a little while longer. What you do is I don't think they have the rematch clause anymore. So what we do we have Big E win the Rumble, as I initially thought that he might, way back before he won the Money in the Bank? I thought Big E would win the Royal Rumble. Do we have Big E win the Rumble? I think that's a good option. I truly believe that's a good option. And I wouldn't mind that option. I don't hate that option. The Royal Rumble is in 4 weeks, which means Big E's going to have, a couple of weeks to explain why he lost and to regather the troops around him. He climbed the mountain. He got there. He was knocked down. And now he's got to reorganize himself and reinvigorate his fan base to support him towards the main event again. You push your babyface in the hole, you let him dig himself out. Okay, cool. Brock pushed him in the hole, even though Brock's a babyface now too, which is very weird. Push him in the hole, now he has to dig himself out. Okay, so Kevin Owens, I thought he would win. I don't know what you do with Kevin Owens, and I don't care, to be quite honest. Same thing with Seth Rollins. I love Seth Rollins, but Seth freaking Rollins, I'm so sorry. I'm dead naming him. Seth freaking Rollins. That's his name now. Seth freaking Rollins. And him losing was expected. I would have preferred for this match, of course, to be Big E versus Seth. It ended up being this fatal 5-way thing, whatever. I am of the opinion, to double back to Big E a little bit, that Big E's title reign had to end anyway. To me, this was the right decision to take the belt off Big E. His title reign had gotten stale. They had, botched so much of it up because they kept having these guys wrestle each other. Nobody had any heat. People were barely over. Guys were not really being featured. Now it's them hitting the reset button, or not just Big E, but the entire division. Now it's like, okay, we got Brock. We got a star, a legitimate star that people will pay to see in this spot. Now we can reorganize with these guys. There's certainty there. There's a lot of uncertainty with the first runs of Big E, Lashley, and Drew McIntyre, or the second run of McIntyre. McIntyre, his title runs didn't have crowds, so there was a lot of uncertainty there. Is he really the guy? Is Bobby Lashley really the guy? Is Big E really the guy? And TV ratings and merchandise sales and attendance and all of this stuff started to slump, and again, it started with the way that they booked the McIntyre stuff. It really killed Raw, what they was doing with Drew McIntyre, and no matter how good Bobby Lashley or Big E was, they had to follow the damage that Drew McIntyre had done to the roster. They pretty much buried the entire roster by having Drew beat everybody within like the first 2 months. And then it just became rematches galore after that. And then there was a bunch of releases and all that other stuff that happened. This was a nice little reset that was needed. So Lashley, they did an angle at the end where Lashley was staring at Brock and Brock laughed at him. That seems to be our match. I would say that match should be our WrestleMania match, but I'll take it for the Royal Rumble. Lashley is a heel. As for right now, maybe they'll stop with this teasing him going babyface thing, and they'll just reform the Hurt Business, and they will do things the right way this time, and then it will be Lashley versus Brock at Rumble, and I would love that. I would be elated with that. That would be great. That would be awesome. That would be dope. And in this match, you can have that the story was told. Lashley speared Brock through the barricade. He was the one who hurt Brock. He got the hurt lock on Brock. He speared Brock twice in this match. He had Brock beat. Big E saved Brock. That's great story angles that you can play with, that MVP can play with in the upcoming weeks. Bobby Lashley's been calling out Brock for 6 years or some shit like this, and Brock's been avoiding him. Play the Clubber Lang. I've been calling you out, punk. When you gonna fight me? When you gonna give me a title match? I like that idea. Pull that. That works. Lashley not being the one who gets beat is definitely beneficial to that angle. So Big E lost, forced Big E to start over. He's got to win the Rumble in order to get his shot. Okay, cool. Lashley, however, is an entitled heel. He feels like it's his title. He didn't get beat. He had Brock beat. He should be the number one contender. Maybe you do your funky triple threat match where it's Lashley versus Owens versus Rollins and the number one contender. And the winner will face Brock at Royal Rumble. Lashley wins that match. Lashley, Brock, Royal Rumble. Book that bitch. It's a slam dunk. It's a slam dunk. Now, Rollins and Kevin Owens, who cares? But you need to have the Big E Brock match, and you need to have the Lashley Brock match, and those matches need to occur. And they need to occur on the big stage. And I think you can really reinflate the audience, because there's going to be a lot of people who are kind of pissed, and it is what it is, even though they love babyface Brock now, because he's cutting his own promos, and he's showing some personality, and he's having fun in the role. But people liked Big E, and they liked Big E in this role. And you do deflate the audience when this guy that they've been getting behind for the last couple of weeks. But then again, he just lost, He flat out just got beat by Lashley just like 2 or 3 weeks ago. So this has all just been bad news. And hopefully Brock can help, can provide some stability. And, the things will be better. Attendance will tick back up. TV ratings will tick back up. Business will go back the way it's supposed to go. And then the next time they do something like put the belt on Lashley or put the belt on Brock, not Brock, but Big E, it could do it the right way, where these guys actually pin the champion in a straight up match without any shenanigans, without it being The Miz. Even though much I love The Miz, Lashley beating The Miz for the belt was all about, hey, come see Lashley win the title, which was great, because it's a very unique thing that WWE doesn't always do. But it didn't make him look strong. He took the belt from The Miz in such easy fashion, and then they didn't do a good job of booking him after that. He just got caught in this whole conundrum with McIntyre, and then from there it was, okay, well now we're ready to take the belt off of him. So now he's coasting until we find the time to take the belt off of him. And Big E, the moment he won the title with no chase whatsoever, it was dead in the water, And I said it on this channel before. Big E was a better Intercontinental Champion because he actually built a chase into it. He won, and then he had a real feud. His feud with Apollo Crews. He had a real feud for the Intercontinental title where he got to cut promos and he had real shit to do. On Raw, when he became the champion, no, it became, for some reason, not about him anymore. That was their fault. Just to reiterate. So I think to really kind of wrap this up, because I know I'm repeating myself at this point. Brock winning was the best decision that they could have made. Big E is not dead, but he's near death. He's had to crawl himself out of the hole. Bobby comes out of this thing just fine, because visually he was winning and the crowd was behind him. Kevin Owens and Seth Rollins, of course, look like goobers, but then again, they look like goobers anyway. All right, so the next disappointment, Liv Morgan was defeated by Becky Lynch in a match that was better than it had any right to be. This was the best Liv Morgan match I've ever seen, courtesy of Becky Lynch. So let's talk about the intros. Becky Lynch apparently found Tony Storm's old gear and decided to, when Tony hopped up and, took a red eye out of there, apparently, if that is to be believed, then she left behind some gear, apparently, and Becky Lynch decided to wear it because it looks exactly like something Tony Storm would wear. And then she had baby goats on her shoulder pads, which were very interesting stuff. Liv was more aggressive in this match. She actually varied her moveset a little bit, which I thought was very good. I liked that it was a little too 50-50 for me, where they was kind of going back and forth and back and forth. And it gave Liv a lot, which was the right thing to do, I think, just to show her off. Let's see what she can do. The power bomb was stiff. It was a stiff one. The issue that we have with Liv Morgan is that despite the fact that people are behind her, and I think that, the journalists were looking for reasons to chop this match apart, because there were some dull moments to the match where the crowd was kind of into it, but not really. But then they would get back into it and they would come back down. They would get back into it and they would come back down. It was at those points that they would try to chop the match down. Like, oh, Becky shouldn't be a heel because the crowd won't boo her. Meanwhile, as I'm reading that, people are booing, because she's in control of the match. Very weird stuff. But Becky did a great job. She did a great job carrying Liv. And it was clear that she was carrying Liv. Liv, it does not pull off aggression very well. For instance, I love the spot with the stairs. They wanted to turn that around. So Liv puts Becky's arm in the stairs and she stomps it repeatedly, but she's stomping it so lightly that the stairs don't make any noise. So there's probably more noise in the background of this video that was made out of that whole time she was stomping and river dancing on Becky Lynch's arm on those stairs. And I just kept saying, like, it's just so weird. Also, Liv Morgan, some of her stuff looks like she's really thinking about it and she's hitting the mat really heavy. For instance, when she did the catapult into the ropes, into the turnbuckle, she put her foot into Becky Lynch's back. She hit the mat, boom, and then her other foot came up almost immediately and shot Becky Lynch into the turnbuckle. It came across as two separate things, and not one smooth motion, but as two separate motions. And a lot of the Liv Morgan offense feels like that, where it's two separate motions, like as if she's, putting it together in her head, rather than doing something that she is, trained to do or that she knows how to do. It just comes across as if she's trying very hard. And it still wasn't a bad match, though. I'm not going to knock Liv too much. A lot of people are deflated because Liv Morgan lost again. But the finish was awesome. She goes for Oblivion, her finisher, which is basically a flatliner off the ropes. Becky Lynch held the ropes and did the manhandle slam, her version of the rock bottom. I think Becky Lynch's feet was supposed to be on the bottom rope in order to cover for this, and it was supposed to be a cheap pin. But Becky Lynch's legs were too short, and she didn't make it, and she just basically ate a pin. So Liv lost. No big deal. A lot of people are kind of like, all right, so if it wasn't Liv, who was it going to be? And it's like, I said this already. And I know everybody doesn't listen to me. If they did, they'd be a little bit smarter about this whole thing. But it became clear that it's really only Rhea or Bianca. All right? Liv Morgan was just a sacrifice. Sacrifice for the heat. Becky Lynch now has some tremendous heat because she killed the dream of Liv Morgan. Now somebody's going to be able to step up. Who could it possibly be? I think your answer is it got to be Rhea Ripley first. If Bianca's going to win the Rumble or Rhea's going to win the Rumble, one of those two are, then the other one has to step up on Raw and be the one who says, all right, I'm going to be the one who's going to beat you for the belt. And they're the only ones who can do it. There's nobody else on the Raw roster that has the name value and is believable enough to beat Becky Lynch. And that's really a big problem with Liv Morgan. It's because this is her first real feud. There's no real believability there. Before this, Liv Morgan feuded with Carmella and she feuded with Lana. She needed to get in there with somebody and have some more feuds. There's no need to rush anything with Liv Morgan. She's been around for 6 years already. Sorry that you just now thought to start pushing her and doing stuff with her recently. And now people don't really have that faith in her and have that belief in her. And only people who really, 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 really like her follow her on Instagram or something like that. That's nobody's fault but WWE's and their lack of foresight. But even if that was the case, just because Liv Morgan got hot and people were interested, doesn't mean you switch the belt. It's just, no. Liv Morgan losing was for the best. It was the best decision they could have possibly made. It was the right decision. Liv Morgan has no business being the champion right now. She's certainly not over enough, and she's just not ready. Does Liv win the Royal Rumble? I say if Liv wins the Royal Rumble, we might as well just end the motherfucker, okay? Put only credible people over in the Royal Rumble, please. Liv Morgan winning the Rumble and having an almost Rey Mysterio-like run to WrestleMania is fine, but I think it basically shits on the Royal Rumble concept, considering she just had title shots. You know, I think that we go with the Royal Rumble, and I think it would have been great if Liv would have got a title shot months ago, lost, and then dedicated herself to winning the Rumble, and then wins the Rumble and saying, okay, I get my second chance at WrestleMania. But at this point, it'd be her third chance, fourth chance. It's like, nah, let's go with somebody else, you know. And she can have a good run. She can come in at number 2 and get into the end and lose, and everybody will still think that she was really good. But I don't know, man. We need more time with Liv Morgan. She's just not there yet. She's not over enough. She's not a strong enough character. She's not a bad enough character. She's not aggressive enough. She's just not over enough either. So, I mean, there's no need to rush it. It has improved in the ring, though. The Rings of Saturn spot where she did off the arm breaker off the rope into the Rings of Saturn, I thought that was very dope. So she's improving, but she's not there yet. She's not in the rarefied air with the big girls yet. Not yet. So Edge defeats The Miz in a match I feel like should have gone the other way. And they did almost all the stuff that I said they should do. Maryse hit Edge with a purse. They called it a bag, but it was like a purse. Should have been a loaded purse. Should have knocked Edge the out. Gave Miz the win. And then Beth Phoenix comes out looking like Xena Warrior Princess and scares Maryse off. That would have made more sense. Instead, here they gave Edge a distraction spear win, which I'm kind of like, is that necessary? Do we really need Edge to be help? To be distracted? Like that was weird. It wasn't necessary either, but I mean, it is what it is. The match itself was solid enough. We got the Brood entrance for Edge. I always like that. Whenever somebody's whole thing is Edge is, not the way he should be, Edge comes out with the Brood entrance, and I like it. And I think it matches perfectly with the look of Beth Phoenix now, where she had all the crazy braids and stuff. She's Beth Phoenix Warrior Princess, and I love it. They did botch the entrance of Beth Phoenix. The production team simply found Beth Phoenix too soon. Maybe it's because Maryse looked too soon. I don't know how that went. But Beth Phoenix was standing there snarling and then moved until her theme song played. So she had this great scowl going on, this great snarl, this Viking almost look to her. And she's just standing there like, and then the music starts playing, and then she starts marching to the ring. I was like, wait a minute, your husband's in danger here. So they botched that. They botched the hell out of that. That was not good. That was probably production's fault. Whoever sent Beth Phoenix out there too soon, that was their fault. But I had an epiphany while I was watching this match. The Miz's offense, lack thereof. The Miz has probably the worst offense I've ever seen from a pro wrestler. He has no technical skills, no high flying skills. He has no big comeback move. He has no real high impact signature moves. He's got no high spots. He's literally got nothing. His punches don't look very good. His kicks don't look very good. He simply does not look like a guy who knows how to wrestle, right? He simply looks like a guy who is like a wrestling manager, but he's also big. Like, you look at the Miz and there's some meat to his arms and his chest and everything. He looks like he will kick the shit out of Adam Cole and 90% of the AEW locker room. But when he actually starts to move around, you're like, this guy's never been in a fight in his life. And how did he survive so long without even a basic babyface comeback? I don't even know what that even looks like, because the Miz is almost always a heel. So I was sitting here just thinking about it, like, if you were the Miz and you were trying to really take the crowd out of this match, what move would you hit? That would take the crowd out of the match. And I'm sitting here thinking, like, what moves did The Miz really have that would make you think, yeah, The Miz is about to win, this match is over? It's like the skull crushing finale, right? That's his finish. So that's it. That's the only move. It's the only move he's got where you can say, okay, he hit that big move, it's over. Everything else is like basically cheating, which is good because he's a heel. And he has almost no offensive repertoire whatsoever. And it's very interesting. But that also makes him very, very safe to work with. Because he's not out there trying to do more than he knows how to do. This entire match was, when Miz was on offense, it was Miz doing basic stuff. Like when he put his boot in Edge's eye. And he was just kind of like twisting his foot in Edge's eye. Like that was great. You don't need to do a lot of flippity doos. You can have simplistic, very simplistic, almost no offense. And be able to get the match over due to your antics and facial expressions and all that other kind of stuff. And this was a masterclass in that. The Miz does that really well. If he was to be honest on like the video game, The Miz would be 0 on everything except charisma and verbal skills. He'll be a 0. Like, can The Miz actually do a flying anything? Has he ever done something off the top rope? Probably. But was it well performed? Probably not. So I don't, it's hard to tell when it comes to like, even when The Miz did like a early in the match, I think he might have did a hip toss on Edge or something like that, and it looked weird. The Miz has terrible offense, and it really stands out when you look at something like AEW, and these guys are 90% offense, so they got moves for days. But most people don't even react to like 90% of that shit. And then you got The Miz where he doesn't really do much of anything, but he gets reactions. So it's very odd. And that really just kind of really shows you how important moves are. Like you got to have some moves for Christ's sake. But damn, like I think the only other signature hold he has other than the Skull Crusher finale is his corner clothesline and the figure 4, which he doesn't always do right. So. I guess in his the Dragon Sleeper on the knee and the neck breaker, but he's never beat anybody with that, and that doesn't even look like it hurts. So I don't know. They set up, of course, the idea of Edge and Beth Phoenix versus The Miz and Maryse. That's excellent. You could do that at the Royal Rumble instead of trying to drag it to WrestleMania. Do it at the Rumble. All right, that's sweet. I would think that Edge losing would have set up that match, but I don't think they want to hang a Miz loss on Edge. And he probably was like, you know what? I definitely should win that match. And I still think that if a better way of doing this would have been for Edge to win straight up without your distraction. And then for Maryse to hit him with the purse from behind and knock him out. And then The Miz, because he's a bastard, he's going to do something like... he's going to, put the chair around Edge's head. He's going to do a concerto on Edge. And then Beth Phoenix comes out there. And then maybe Beth Phoenix is going to manhandle Maryse. And then Miz quits his crime to save his wife. And then they both run off. That would have been pretty much better for me. If I was putting this thing together, I probably would have put it together that way. That way you wouldn't have had that long stretch of time where everybody's watching the corner. And then Beth Phoenix is standing there waiting for her music to start, and the match has stopped. Everything else has stopped as they watch Beth Phoenix march to the ring. And then she chases Maryse around the ring. And The Miz is following them, yelling at Beth Phoenix to leave her alone. Just saying it was a better way to do it. That would have made a little bit more sense. And probably would have told the story that they were trying to tell better. But I was fine with the match. I was fine with the outcome. I think that was the right outcome. And I think the match was as good as it was going to be. Some dweebs on Twitter told me that this is not the first Edge versus Miz match, and they wrestled 10 years ago. Apparently, they wrestled several times at this point. This is like the 4th match that they've ever had. And I was like, well, thanks, dorks, for keeping up with these matches. I'm not a cage match guy, man. I don't look that shit up. All right, the third match on the show, going backwards, of course. The Street Profits versus RK Bro. And this is where the Migos came in. They sat at ringside. And this match featured the biggest lie WWE has ever told. That the Migos is the greatest group in the world. I was like, motherfucker, what? You couldn't sell that to me at 4 years old. You couldn't sell that to me at any point. I know better than this. And I was just like, okay, it's a kayfabe TV show for children, right? It's like not all 9 members of the Wu-Tang Clan, all 5 members of Bone Thugs and Harmony, both members of Outkast, both members of Mobb Deep. You know, they didn't just suddenly all die. Everybody with talent just up and died out of nowhere. You know, West Side Connection and NWA, everybody just dropped dead right now. And Miz, and you still would be questioning whether the Migos are the best group in the world. But, you know, they're trying to lend their faces and names to your product. Of course, you're going to say they're at least really good, right? Greatest group in the world. Fuck out of here. So the Street Profits, they were working very aggressive. There's been something, a bee in the bonnet of Montez Ford the last 2 weeks, or at least the last 2 times I've seen him. He's wrestling baby faces. It's almost as if they're teasing a bit of an edge for the group now, you know. And I'm not saying that they're turning heel, but it seems like there's something changing about the Street Profits, you know. And I think that, you know, Montez Ford getting braids really kind of signified that something might be changing with that team. But this match was very good. I like that they showed respect at the beginning, but the Street Profits, of course, started kind of mocking them later, dancing and stuff, and, you know, taking it for a joke. I did kind of like that, because that's well within the characters of the Street Profits. They like to taunt and mess with people and stuff like that, and still be baby faces while doing so. The finish, though. The finish to this match. Mwah, the alley-oop RKO. Oh, beautiful. Absolutely beautiful finish. I hate that the Usos did the 3D earlier. That's the only problem I have with the finish of this match, is that it occurred after New Day and Usos, where the Usos did the 3D, because it's essentially the same finish, you know. So that sucked. That, you know, I felt like I just saw this finish, but it was a little bit different. It was different enough, I guess, with Riddle kind of throwing them up. But I love the finish to this match. It was the right decision. Street Profits, RK Bro, keep them going. Madcap Moss loses to Drew McIntyre in a match that was probably way too long. But Madcap Moss was able to give him an opportunity to show what he can do. He's a bumping motherfucker. I can tell you that much. He's got a nice physique. He's a bumping motherfucker, though. You know, for some reason he was going after it. Like that whole thing with Turnbuckle, where he ran and banged his head against that turnbuckle. I was like, what the hell was he even trying to do? It's like he ran with the intention of launching himself into that turnbuckle. Usually you're supposed to act like you're going for something, and then you miss it. But he's like, I hate that turnbuckle. I'm gonna run it. I'm gonna hit it with my head. Boom, and just that was it. You know, whatever. But they got this guy wrestling in suspenders to cover up his body. It was such a weird match, you know, because it was better than it had any right to be, but it was far too long. I was really kind of getting upset that so many people said, like, oh, this match is too long. They're giving Madcap Moss way too much. And I was like, yeah, all that is true, but you're the guys who think that Kenny Omega versus Alan Angels being 15 minutes is a good thing because it gets Alan Angels over. It's like, why do we want Alan Angels over again? You know, why was it good for Bryan Danielson to wrestle all these members of the Dark Order for 10 minutes every week? 15 minutes, 20 minutes, half hour sometimes? Like, what good was that? Madcap Moss as Madcap Moss, Riddick Moss as Madcap Moss is not going anywhere. Let's be honest about this. This is Baby's first gimmick. And I think some smart wrestling journalist said that he gets Deacon Batista vibes from Riddick Moss. And I do as well. You know, I think that clearly they're just testing his personality and they're fucking with him, essentially. Here, go do this stupid ass gimmick. and get it over. And if he can get it over, he might have a future because he's already got the body, and if he's got the skill verbally and he doesn't have an ego, he ought to be okay. So to me, this feels like, what I call a baby's first gimmick. They need something for him to do. He's willing to go out there and do it, embarrass himself, being Madcap Moss. Everybody hates this character, by the way. It's 100% pure hatred. Nobody likes it. Everybody hates Happy Corbin too. Nobody likes Happy Corbin. They both suck. But because they both suck and they're pushing through and still doing it anyway and still doing it, and their performances are not bad. They're not getting the reaction they should be getting. They aren't having the best matches in the world either. But they're nailing their promos as far as doing bad comedy that still manages to be funny. Because it's funny because it's so bad. Like, I still laughed at the whole, what do you call a goat in Scotland? And they said call it Drew's prom date. It's really bad comedy, but them laughing at it and cracking up at how bad this is, it makes me laugh at how bad it is. it's entertaining. It's only thing is you just can't do it all day. That one thing where they was out there for 10 minutes, it seemed like that was dreadful. It was some dreadful TV. It was a waste of Fox's TV time. It was a waste of Fox's ad revenue. It was a waste of money. But in short spurts, them doing bad comedy on purpose, being a bad comedian, it's actually not bad. It's not horrible. It's tolerable. So, I think that they tested Riddick Moss here, see if he can actually work. Again, it felt like a SmackDown TV match that they threw on the pay-per-view, which is very odd. And they're not calling them pay-per-views anymore. We'll talk about that at the end. So, of course, Drew McIntyre wins. After the match, Drew McIntyre is chipper and shirtless and backstage because he never wears a shirt anywhere unless he's forced to. Somebody need to beat him up and put a shirt on him. He gets attacked by Madcap Moss and Baron Corbin. They then put a chair around his head and hit it with a steel beam. And I was like, what the fuck? These guys just went from chuckling idiots to now vicious, bloodthirsty bastards who tried to kill this man. Like, why do we elevate these characters so fast? Like, it's too fast. We should do this in stages where, but now you got this guy going for blood. I'm like, wait a minute. I don't know if I like that. It might have been a little too much for those characters. A little too stiff, could have took our time with that. But obviously, this was done to take Drew off the show. And probably so he could do the big return for the Rumble. And I like that idea. I am one of those people, again, because the Rumble is going to have some great intrigue this year. And I think that Brock decision, putting the belt on Brock, makes it even more intriguing. Because I think a lot of people believed that Drew McIntyre was going to win the Rumble and end up wrestling Roman at WrestleMania. After the decision to put the belt on Brock Lesnar, some people are saying, okay, well, we can pivot Big E to win the Rumble, and then he's going to face Brock or Roman at WrestleMania. It's all entirely possible. That's all well and good. The question that I'm going to have is, they did this angle with Drew McIntyre in order to, probably write him off TV for a little while, which is the right decision to do because he needs a break. He needs to be freshened up. I mean, they killed Drew McIntyre with this whole SmackDown thing, SmackDown Warrior tag teaming with Jeff Hardy. That shit, of course, went nowhere because Jeff left. Then you had this whole thing with Madcap Moss and Happy Corbin. It was all nonsense from the get up, and it's very difficult to get people into anything that involves Happy Corbin. So he needed a break. He needed to go away for a while so that people can miss him, and then he can make a triumphant return. 4 weeks probably isn't long enough, but that's the longest we can get. I don't see why we don't do a Ricky Steamboat-like thing with Drew McIntyre, where we give him like 2 weeks off, and then the third week, he does a promo sitting at home in a neck brace. And you probably all have seen that promo where Ricky Steamboat is talking about Randy Savage, and he's breaking his voice. I'm talking to you right now, Randy Savage. You tried to end my career. That's what I would do. I would have him like sit in the house with his wife holding his hand and cupping his muscle, as he wears a tight shirt, or probably not wearing a shirt at all because that's Drew McIntyre style. And he would cut a promo where his voice keeps breaking, and it sounds like he's never going to come back. And just have Madcap Moss and Happy Corbin laughing at him. Keep it short. And then he makes his surprise triumphant return at the Royal Rumble. He eliminates those guys. I don't know if I'd have him win it, but he at least gets his revenge on those guys. And then maybe he kills them in February at some point on whatever February pay-per-view is going to be. But he's in a death spot fucking with Corbin and Moss. And there's just no way to win. Wrestling those guys are like quicksand. Corbin is fine. He's really good as a heel, in so much that nobody ever wants to cheer him. But at the same time, he just doesn't have an interesting character behind him. This shit doesn't work. And he doesn't. This Happy Corbin thing is not working. But if they're gonna get rid of that and start going vicious bullies with this thing, okay. But they're not gonna do that. They're gonna keep him doing Happy Corbin, which is goofy and stupid. I already talked about the Usos and the New Day. I knew they were gonna have a good match, and they did. And then the Usos win with 3D. All right. Hopefully 3D doesn't turn into the new Doomsday device where everybody uses it and nobody wins with it. I hate that so much. I hate so much that I see Doomsday devices outside the ring. And I just be looking at that shit like, man, are you serious? What's another great tag team move that haven't been bastardized yet? Maybe the Steiner elevated bulldog move. Too many people haven't stolen that and bastardized it yet. But FTR started using the Power and Glory finish, which I think is great for them. I think it fits them very well. I would like for people to start coming up with their own tag team moves that actually look good and look like finishers. Like MSK did the Top Rope Blockbuster. I think that's pretty sweet. I just hate MSK. All right, the kickoff show. Ridge Holland gets his nose broken because Ricochet couldn't really fully rotate. Steps on his face. Ridge Holland is pulled away from the match by WWE Medical. And Sheamus just beats these guys by himself. And I was like, well, let that go. Sheamus, a guy who couldn't buy a win in his last couple of months on Raw, he's unstoppable now on SmackDown. Hey, I like it. I loves me some Sheamus. Too bad it had to be you, Cesaro, and Ricochet. I'm sorry to see it. But if Sheamus is about to win something or get positioned for something good, hey, look, Cesaro can eat all the pins that he wants if he's going to elevate Sheamus. I would say the same thing if Cesaro was on his way up. Sheamus can eat the pin, but, he's not going anywhere. All right, cool. So apparently, WWE is still trying to phase out the PPV name. They don't want you to call them pay-per-views anymore. They want you to call them Premier Live Events. And they have been pushing this for a little while now. I think they really started pushing it now. They stopped calling them pay-per-views years ago. I forgot what euphemism they started using. But right when the network was formed and they weren't doing pay-per-views anymore, they really wanted to stop doing pay-per-views. I think they wanted to call them special live attractions or something like that. Special live events or something. And they still do in their corporate documents and in their corporate junk. They don't use pay-per-view because pay-per-view is a very specific thing. It's like WWE gets really tight-assed about specifics like belt and championship. It's like technically Vince is right. Belts hold up your pants, The WWE championship is not for holding up his pants. But at the same time, everybody knows it's just slang. It's something that we all use. Pay-per-view is the same thing. People talk about things being pay-per-views, even when it's not pay-per-view, it's just streaming, So it's like people just call things pay-per-views, and they do it colloquially, and they're now trying to force that out and saying, oh, we're not even going to use pay-per-view colloquially. You know, what next? They're going to start saying that they're not TV shows, they're streaming episodes or whatever. And you're going to be like, okay, look, we have to be able, we need to be a little bit more flexible in our language, please. Let's not be so rigid, you know. If somebody calls it a pay-per-view, then just understand that you know what they mean. You know, it's a special event, live event, you know, on the network. And I get that sometimes people are going to be confused, but pay-per-view was never really pay-per-view. You know, you read pay-per-view, you know, you paid once and you usually got it for, 2 days, and then you had to pay again. You know, if you pay for the network, you get it, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, whenever you want. It's not technically a pay-per-view. You're not paying per view. You pay once and then you view as much as you want. So technically the pay-per-view is a misnomer. So, but I did see a lot of people who obviously were getting upset that they're trying to phase out pay-per-views or the pay-per-view word. And I just kind of said to myself, it's a misnomer anyway. It's not a pay-per-view, it's a streaming thing. But, if they want to call it a premier live event, who cares? Yeah, they're being tight-assed about it. They're being silly, but obviously it serves a purpose, It separates from what other people are actually doing. As far as WWE doesn't run pay-per-views. They run premier live events. AEW runs pay-per-views because they literally have a pay-per-view model. UFC, boxing, they have a pay-per-view model. WWE doesn't. So they don't run pay-per-views. Makes sense to me. I don't see why anybody would be upset about it. But because it's WWE, they have to find some reason to be mad about it. It is what it is. They don't have to be what everybody else wants them to be. That's like another thing, lineal TV. When they introduced that term, people were like, what does that even mean? It's like, it means cable, broadcast television. Like, broadcast television and cable are two different kinds of national television, So when people are like, Lash Legends is so bad she shouldn't be on national TV, it's like, she's not. She's not on national television. She's on a streaming app. That's where her matches were. If she was on USA, then you could say she shouldn't be on national TV. But sometimes people will say national TV to mean broadcast television. Fox, ABC, NBC. But that's just going too far down the wire. I just think that people who are complaining about the premier live events is because it doesn't roll off the tongue like PPV, and you're not used to it, and people hate all changes. But I'm going to call them PPVs because does it really matter? They stopped calling house shows. They call them live events. So a premier live event would be, all right, so what is a live event? Raw is a live event. SmackDown's a live event. And a house show is a live event. If they call everything a live event, then a premier live event sounds like it's next level, right? It's something higher than a TV show. It's something higher than a house show. It's premier. Okay, cool. It's not a misnomer. It makes sense. But they call everything a live event. They don't call things house shows anymore. House shows is old wrestling term. They don't call them house shows anymore. Probably they still call it a ring. I don't know. I forgot who came up with the whole square circle thing. I wish I could remember. All right, I've talked enough. Thank you guys for your time. Like, share, and subscribe. Really get the shares up. Please get the likes up. And I'll talk to you guys later, man. Peace out.